Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to the Guilds of Ravnica Prerelease Primer. And today we're going to hopefully get you ready for that pre-release coming up this weekend, especially if you've never gone before. We're going to let you know what you can expect, what you should bring, what it's going to be like to be there and play in a tournament like that. We're also going to talk about specifically what's going on in Guilds of Ravnica. We'll be talking about the mechanics and also what the guilds are trying to accomplish, and hopefully give you some tips to win some games. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support what we do here at the channel. Our Patreon page is linked down there. You're also going to find links to products on Amazon. If you make any purchases there, we'll get a small percentage no matter what you buy. And then finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. Hopefully you can save some cash while you support us. And as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all the viewers. Y'all make the channel what it is, so thank you. And let's get into it. Alright, the big question on your mind, especially if you're new to this. What should you bring? What do you need to take with you? Well, here's a few things. Let's begin real simple. Pen and paper, especially a pen, is going to be critical to save you time. Many times in a store, you're going to have to fill out a form, whether you're getting a DCI card for the first time, if you've never played in a tournament before, or you just simply need to fill out a form just so they have your information that they can input into the computer. But regardless, a lot of stores just don't have pens available. They might have one, you could be waiting in line for it, or you might have to borrow a pen from somebody, or worse yet, sometimes I've seen stores sell pens. You don't need to be buying a pen at a game store for $1 or $2. That's silly. Just make sure you have something. Also, paper is nice to record things that are going on in the game. When it comes to life counts, you can record life counts on there. As a matter of fact, I would recommend it. There is a spin down life counter that comes in your pre-release kit. We'll get to that in just a moment. However, it's kind of nice to get in the habit to keep track of your life and your opponent's life on pen and paper, just because that is the preferred way to do it in more competitive tournaments. Not critical in a pre-release, but if you have aspirations to play more tournaments going down the road, you want to at least probably get used to doing that. Card sleeves. Some people just don't care if their cards get beat up, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But I would recommend still having sleeves when you play at a game store, because tables can be dirty. By the time you get to the fourth round or so, you could be shuffling cards or getting tacky. So I would say if you can get a hold of some card sleeves, I would use them. You're going to be running a 40 card deck. So make sure you have some extras in case the sleeve breaks or something like that. If you bring just 40 with you and one breaks, you're going to have to buy a whole new set from the game store. And again, you don't want to spend the extra money if you don't have to. So just be prepared there. Some people do use playmats, and I think that's a good investment if you're going to play at the store a lot in the future. But if you're just playing in this one event, I wouldn't spend the money on it quite yet. A deck box or maybe another binder I think is always good to have, because the pre-release kit is a box that holds your cards, but it's very fragile. It's cardboard. It opens real easily. If it's getting knocked around in a backpack, it could open. Things could get on your cards, or you could mix up your card pools if you're playing in multiple tournaments. That's not a good thing. Sometimes it's good, too, to separate cards out after the event, maybe things you want to trade, things you want to keep. So I would bring something along those lines that's just more sturdy than the pre-release box itself. And some people like to bring sleeve lands ahead of time as well, which you can keep in a deck box, for example. That's going to save you time when it comes to deck building, because at some point you're going to have to go get lands, and usually stores will provide those for you. But again, you have to get up, go to the land station, wait in line, push your way through there, get your lands. It's all time you could be deck building or trying to figure out what you're actually playing. Dice are good to have too, even though you do get a spin down die within your pre-release kit. It's nice to have some extra ones, especially randomized ones if you want to roll to see who goes first, because it's a casual tournament. A lot of times people will just roll the dice that comes in there, but when you start playing in more competitive tournaments, again, that's kind of a faux pas, because people don't like to roll spin down die where the numbers are in order. And also a lot of folks don't think they're weighted appropriately. So they'll use other randomized dice, even 6-sided die, a lot of times to decide who goes first. And also you're going to want to keep track of other things in the game other than just your life total. So having the extra dice will be nice. It's again going to save you time. Finally, something that's not pictured here that you're going to want to bring a snack and bring water, like bottled water especially is important. Game stores sometimes will sell stuff, but usually it's junk food like soda, energy drinks, candy bars. And I found anyway that I have a hard time concentrating when I eat that type of stuff. I might feel better and not feel tired, but I have a hard time concentrating on the game. If I have a healthy snack and water, I definitely can concentrate a lot better. And they might have bottled water at the store, but you know they're going to charge a ton for it. Last thing I'll say about preparation, call the store ahead of time, find out how many rounds the tournament's going to be, what formats, because there are different formats that they could have. Usually they'll just have a normal sealed deck game. However, sometimes you'll see two-headed giant tournaments here or there, and then you need a partner. Not that you can't go without a partner, because you might be able to find somebody at the store more often than not, but it's just good to know that going in, I think. Many stores have limited space as well, and you might need to contact them ahead of time to pre-register. Especially this pre-release, if you want a certain guild kit, supplies might be limited, and some stores may allow you to select a guild when you pre-register. It's also good to know how much they're charging for the tournament, because some stores will charge more but then have bigger prize payouts. Sometimes prizes outside of just Guilds of Ravnica. You just want to make sure you know what you're getting into and about the amount of time it's going to take. On average, stores will typically do 4 rounds, but it's very common to see 3 rounds, also very common to see 5 rounds. 4 seems to be the average. Well, every once in a while, you might see someone actually do a true tournament based on attendance, which could go for a very long time. It's rare, but it does happen. Now, pre-release is also Swiss format, which means it doesn't matter if you lose. Let's say you're going to play 4 rounds. You can play all 4 rounds and lose all 4 rounds. It's just fine. You don't get eliminated at any point. And it's because this is meant to be casual and fun. This is really all about sitting down and playing with the cards for the first time, having a good time, opening your packs, seeing what you open, laughing with your friends about the cards they get and such. It's really not meant to be a super competitive tournament. Sure, there are prizes and there are going to be people taking it more seriously than other people, but this is supposed to be an entry-level event. So if you're new to Magic, don't hesitate to go to one of these. A lot of people are there to support you and help you along as well. So most stores do have a very nice, relaxed environment around these events. All right, let's move on to the pre-release kits. Now, something different in this particular set that we haven't seen in a little while. You actually get to select, at least most stores will let you select, which guilds you want to play while supplies last. And if you choose, for example, the Dimir guild, you see in the top left corner, you're going to get 5 packs of regular Guilds of Ravnica. Then you're going to get 1 seeded pack. Now, that seeded pack is going to consist of cards that are focused on the Dimir guild. So you're going to see a lot of the blue-black cards, or cards that could be blue or black with a watermark, for example. You're also going to find your promo card in that pack. So you're going to get a Dimir rare or mythic rare that is going to be date stamped in foil in that pack guaranteed. Now, obviously, it's going to be different for each of the guilds. The seeded pack will focus on the particular guild. Like I said before, you're going to get a spin down die like you typically get, and a little bit of collateral that's going to help you with your deck building. Maybe if you've never built a sealed deck before. Doesn't give you a lot of information, but at least points you in the right direction. So that's what you can expect. Out of those 5 regular packs in the seeded pack, you build a deck. Now, once you choose your guild, you're not stuck to play that guild. It's still your choice based on the card pool you have. So let's say I open up that Is It box and I look at my seeded cards and I'm not real thrilled by them. I open my other 5 packs and I feel like I have a lot of Dimir cards that are good. I can still play Dimir. Maybe I splash a little red and go 3 colors. As a matter of fact, I think you're going to do that more often than not. I think you're going to see yourself playing 3 color decks quite frequently in the sealed environment. I do feel like Abzan could be a good choice, as well as Sultai. So keep your eyes open for those opportunities when they come up. Now, a lot of people have asked me which guilds do I think are the most powerful and what should they play. Let me say first, before I give you that answer, play what makes you happy. It's supposed to be fun. It's a pre-release. I mean, prizes aren't that critical here. If you really want to win, I'll tell you what I think is strong, but it's also sealed. You never know what you're going to open. So you could open the weaker one and get a great pool. You could open what I consider the stronger one and get a poor pool. But at the end of the day, if you play a guild because I say it's the best one, but you don't feel comfortable with that strategy, or maybe you just really like a different one, play the one you love. That's really what this is all about. All right, so here's my answer. Here's what I think, just from what I've seen so far. I haven't sat down and played yet, but I feel like Dimir is going to be the most powerful, and I actually ranked them right on the screen. I think Dimir is the most powerful guild. I think a close second, though, is Golgari. Feels like that could be really good, too. Third, I have Selesnya, which I think is still very strong. Fourth is It. Now, the reason It is a little bit lower is because it is very dependent on your card pool. You have to have the right ratio of instants and sorceries versus creatures that care about them to really have a great deck, and it could happen, and you might have an amazing deck, but I think it's a little harder to pull together in sealed. And finally, Boros I have 5th, and Boros, you could have a killer Boros deck if you get the right cards. It could be super aggressive, it could easily go 4-0, but you need to have the right cards. You have to have the perfect combination of the right creatures with Mentor and creatures that want to get pumped by the Mentor ability. You have to have the perfect curve. If you have it, it's very, very powerful. If you don't, it could be a long day. So that's one thing I would consider. But like I said, you are going to look at those colors and then probably go a third color anyway. So you are able to manipulate depending on what you have in your pool. All right, let's talk about building a sealed deck if you've never built one before. You want to go 40 cards. That's the legal minimum. There's no reason to go 41, 42, because you're always going to have a card that is not quite as good as your other cards. And there's no reason to dilute your deck. You want your best stuff. Go 40. Lands, 16 to 18. 17 is a very good average. Usually 17 lands and 23 playable cards is a deck. Now, if your curve's lower, maybe you're playing a Boros deck with a lot of small creatures, 16 lands will be fine for you. Or maybe I'm more top heavy. I have some big Golgari cards and I have some huge payoffs. So I could go 18 lands in that example. Creatures, 15 to 17. Sounds like a lot, but in sealed, games are won or lost on the battlefield 99% of the time. You want to make sure you have creatures. Make sure you have removal spells. They're important too. Make sure you have some cards that will help you close out a game and get past board stalls. Those are very, very critical. But at the end of the day, make sure you have enough creatures. I said 15, 17 creatures on the slide here, but a couple of guilds do want to be sort of creature lighter. For example, Dimir and Izzet, you might actually play like a 13 creature deck occasionally. Not all the time, but some of the time. Just consider that, especially in Guilds of Ravnica, those numbers could shift a little more than normal. All right, as far as your curve goes, the 1 mana spot, 0 to 2. Many times I don't play 1-drops. They just don't give you that many good 1-drops typically. There are exceptions here, though. There are some really cheap creatures if I'm playing Selesnya that I can put out quickly and then tap for Convoke abilities, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Or in Boros, I want to make sure I have creatures coming out consistently so they can start attacking fast. So in those particular examples, I could see myself playing more 1-drops than normal, but 0 to 2 I think is fair. The 2 spot is the most critical spot of your curve. You need to have board presence or at least a way to control the board on turn 2. 4 to 6 cards in that part of the curve easily. 3 is also very important. 3 to 5 cards. You want to make sure you're building your board state at this point in the game. You can't fall behind. You're just going to lose. 4 mana spells. Now we start coming down our curve. 2 to 4. You can have some good mid-range cards that aren't necessarily always super powerful, but they're a little more consistent. 5 mana spells, 1 to 3. Here's where we start getting into the bigger, more powerful things. And then 6 or more, 0 to 2. Sometimes you don't have any huge expensive bombs. Maybe your bomb just happens to be a more economical card, or you're just playing a strategy like Boros again, for example, where you just have a lot of little creatures attacking in as fast as possible. Then maybe you do have 0, 6 or more, but it's sealed. You're going to want to play with your big crazy stuff, right? So I'd be careful. Don't go more than 2, but it's okay to have 1 or 2 real big expensive bombs. Archetypes. All right, let's talk about the different archetypes. And this set, it's kind of easy because they coincide, of course, with the 5 guilds. But we're going to talk about the guilds, the mechanics that are related to them, and then some other strategies as well. Let's begin with Boros. Their mechanic is called Mentor. Whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. So the whole idea here is you want a lot of creatures attacking all at the same time as much as possible. The ones with the higher power are going to lift up and give a +1/+1 counter to the ones with the lower power. Make sure you stack that ability properly so that you get the most use out of it. Remember that. It could get a little confusing when you're attacking with a lot of creatures. Now, basically, you want as many of these mentor creatures as you possibly can get. The other creatures you'll play are going to be other cheap creatures that also maybe have good abilities that are better as they get larger, because those are the cards that you could be mentoring as you go along. The whole idea here is you want to attack every turn if possible. You're going to be in some races. It's going to be close at times. But the second the game gets gummed up and you can't attack with Boros, you're in trouble. The support cards you're looking for are going to be removal spells, and they're going to be spells like combat tricks or other things that will help you keep attacking. Dimir. Okay, Dimir has Surveil. Almost a cross between Scry and Explore in some ways. But basically, to Surveil, and the example you see on the screen here is a Surveil 2, look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest on the top of your library in any order. So it's like Scry, but instead of choosing top or bottom of my deck, I choose top of my deck or graveyard, which is kind of nice because it could populate your graveyard, and there are definitely reasons to do that within the set. Now, overall, Surveil goes a long way to kind of help a control deck, and that's what Dimir is trying to do. You want to see as many of your cards as possible, get through your deck as fast as possible, so you can get to the point where you control the game with counter magic and or destroy spells, and protect yourself and your things. So you're going to win with evasive, hard to deal with creatures. For example, you see Night Veil Predator here, Flying Death Touch, Hexproof 3/3. It's hard to get rid of. It's also hard to block. It has evasion. There's other cards like this that are going to be difficult to block. Those are going to be your win conditions while you try to control the rest of the game. Golgari. They care about creatures in your graveyard and have the undergrowth mechanic, and that can be a little different on different cards. For example, the one on the left says this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. The one on the right says this will enter the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Ultimately, it wants creatures in the graveyard. One strategy you're going to find with Golgari, they have a lot of low toughness creatures, maybe that have higher power. So you might run a 4/1 flyer that you could normally not run in sealed, but because it's going to perhaps hit the board, trade with something, and then go to the graveyard, it's better than it would be in other environments because, again, Golgari cares about how many creatures are in the graveyard. So you're going to find a lot of expendable creatures. You're going to find some graveyard recursion here. You're also going to find ways to mill yourself occasionally. So again, this also has black in the 2 colors, so you know you're going to have access to some Serval as well. Put it all together, Golgari is about using the graveyard as a resource to your advantage. Izzet. Okay, we mentioned Izzet a little bit before, but this is all about instants and sorceries matter, and the mechanic is Jumpstart. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other costs. Then exile this card. So Sonic Assault, for example, I pay a red, blue, and 1 at instant speed, tap target creature, and this will deal 2 damage to that creature's controller. It goes to the graveyard. While it's in the graveyard, at any time, because it's an instant, as long as I have priority, I can go ahead and discard a card, any card from my hands, pay, yet again, red, blue, and 1, exile Sonic Assault from my graveyard, and I get to cast it again. It actually counts as being casted. That's very critical. We'll talk about that in just a second. So Jumpstart basically gives you another crack at the card. However, you do have to discard a card to get there. Discarding isn't always a drawback, as we've seen. Sometimes in this set, discarding the right card could matter. Maybe another Jumpstart card, for example, to find value there. Now, Crackling Drake, on the other hand, is a creature that cares about instants and sorceries not only in the graveyard, but also in exile. So it plays well with Jumpstart, in other words. You're going to find other creatures that will get larger till end of turn based on how many instants and sorceries you play. Those will work very well with Jumpstart cards as well. That's how Izzet's trying to win. Those are the win condition creatures. They usually have some evasion like flying. And then as you play your instants and sorceries, you try to clear the path and get across with the damage. It's a little shakier than some of the other strategies, but if you have the right cards, it can come together very nicely. Selesnya, we know what they want to do. They want to go wide. They want to just overwhelm with lots of small creatures and then pump those creatures later. They want to use those creatures as a resource to bring out other spells with the Convoke ability. And a lot of them will have Vigilance, and many of them are dual colors, which will really help with Convoke. So let's look at Rosemane Center, for example. It has Convoke. Your creatures can help cast the spell. Each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. So in other words, if I were to tap Ledev Champion towards this, I can choose either green or white mana. That's kind of amazing, right? And I can cast this in any combination. I could use 5 creatures as long as 1 can count as the green and 1 can count as the white. Or I can use a combination of creatures and my regular mana from lands. And it just leaves you a lot of versatility. I mentioned before, a lot of these Selesnya creatures will be dual colors. That's going to help a lot with Convoke. And also many have Vigilance like the Centaur you see on the right. Basically, I can attack with this. It's a 4/4 Vigilance. Okay, after my attack's over on my next main phase, I can still tap this for Convoke. Pretty crazy, right? So yes, this is going to be all about building out as many creatures as possible, getting some fast Convoke spells, and then pumping everything and going in for the kill. Alright, sometimes you open your cards, you look at your pool, and you realize, wow, I have nothing that goes together. If that's the case, another option could be you play 4 or 5 color good stuff. You just try to put the best cards in, and you color fix, and you just try to make it work. Every once in a while, you could actually have a good deck doing that. Now, I don't know if you're going to run into that as much in this particular format because of the seeded packs, which is kind of nice, but it still could happen. Now, one thing they did in Ravnica, because they were prepared for that considering all of the various color requirements here, they did put a guild gate in every pack instead of a basic land, and they also put cards that will get benefits from guild gates. So that way, the guild gates, they do slow you down because they come into play tapped, but they fix your colors, which you will need if you're going 4 or 5 colors. But then the upside is eventually you might get one of these cards that has a payout and speeds you back up and kind of moves you back along for taking the time out to play the guild gates. So one example of that is on your left, Garrison Sergeant. It has double strike as long as you control a gate. A 3/3 double strike for 5 is really good. A 3/3 for 5 is not good. So you want to make sure you have enough gates in your deck if you choose to play this card. But that's another way you could go if you kind of get backed into a corner possibly. Last thing I want to show you are split cards. You're going to find these in all the guilds. This example is an Isn't one. And on the left side, they all have hybrid mana casting costs. In this case, I can pay a blue or a red for Invert. But if I want to play Invent, I do have to pay a red, a blue, and 4. In this case, both sides of the card are instant, but that's not always the case. Sometimes both will be sorcery, sometimes one side will be instant, one side will be sorcery, so read the card carefully. And also, you can't play both at once. You have to choose one or the other. There have been split cards in the past where you could play both if you chose to. That was called the fuse mechanic. These particular cards do not have fuse, so you do have to choose one or the other. Another reason I chose this particular card to feature is because there's actually a mistake on the card. If you look at the invert side, it says switch the power and toughness of each of up to 2 target creatures, period. It actually should have an until end of turn at the end of that. So when you play with this card at the pre-release, it's not going to say until end of turn, but they have made a rules adjustment so that only does occur through the end of turn. Just keep that in mind with invert in case you decide to play it or someone plays it against you. Alright, with that being said, hopefully that prepares you for the pre-release this weekend. Now, I do have a Guilds of Ravnica limited set review on the channel. It's in 5 parts, one for each guild. We go through every card individually. It takes a little time to watch those, but if you have the time, I would recommend it. If you don't, you should get enough from this video, I think, to have a good time at the pre-release. When you get a chance, let me know how your weekend goes, what kind of pulls you got, how your record was. And until next time, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.